Hey y'all, it's Dan, your numerical lion, back with another video, a late night video, as is my custom. And I just want to say before I start that my intent for this video is to show some numerical patterns or coincidences, you might call them, that are either part of the organic matrix that we live in, or there's possibly, artificial intelligence involved, or someone is involved with putting these numbers out there. I don't know. I'd also like to protect myself from any negative entities that may be attached to this, because this is mostly information I got from the government and the media, which is basically one and the same. So I'd like to protect myself with a sphere of energy around me, protecting from above, from below, from to the left, to the right, and I am protected from anything. So I'm going to continue here with this story. My friend was telling me about that she saw this, that she heard about this, and I don't know if you can read this, but it says Brattleboro receives $4,000 for public and social services for each person who fills out the 2020 census. So I thought I'd look into this, and I saw this article about Vermont and Windham County. So, a month after most U.S. households were invited to respond to the 2020 census, nearly half of the country has already done that. That's 69 million households. 69 million households. Let me make this bigger. But when you zoom into Vermont, the participation numbers aren't as encouraging. Funny zoom, and I just zoomed in. As of Thursday afternoon, only 37.2% of Vermont's 354,000 households had responded, about 10 percentage points below the national rate of 46.7%, according to the U.S. Census Online Bureau's online tracker. So Vermont is 37%. This places Vermont at number 48 among all the states, plus Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. So, way back in the pack, Vermont is. So, the Vermont Complete Count Committee, formed to ensure a complete and accurate statewide population count, believes Vermonters have gotten distracted by the novel coronavirus pandemic, which has led to massive job losses as well as a scramble to secure daily necessities like toilet paper. So the worst counties are the Windham and Bennington counties. Windham County is the county I live in. It's second to last at 24.9%. So they go on to tell you how many households there are. And they officially launched their online response site on March 11th, the day that this was all declared a global pandemic. So the lowest rates are in Vermont, and Windham, Bennington, and Windham County. So it's interesting they talk about 37% up here, 37.2% of Vermont's 354,000 households had responded, which is interesting because Vermont equals 37. And this is all because, well, part of the reason is because of the novel coronavirus pandemic, which equals 360. And that's interesting because before I get to that, it's interesting, this 360 or 36. So this may be the hardest census since the first one in 1790, and Vermont is leading the way. So the 2020 census may go down in history It's the most difficult one ever, even harder than the one in 1790 that was done on horseback. So there's another article about it. This year's census may be the toughest count yet. So the good news, says this guy Clarence Anthony, is I've never seen elected officials taking the census so seriously. He's CEO of the National League of Cities. It seems like there's a greater commitment to reach the historically hard to count residents. Remember, I was talking about how it's because of this, part of the reason they say in the article is because of the novel coronavirus pandemic. Well, that was 360, and the quote, I've never seen elected officials taking the census so seriously, equals 306 both in single reduction and reverse reduction in two different ciphers. Pretty interesting. So 306 is 36. Numerology, you don't count to zero. So community leaders are concerned that historically hard to count residents will be even harder to count in this year's census, thanks to technological hurdles and increased distrust in government. So why do they say it matters? We'll count more than 330 million people this year, 330 or 33. They love that number. Determines how 1.5 trillion in federal funding gets allocated across state and local governments. Inaccurate counts mean that communities don't get their fair share for those dollars, right? That's the reasoning behind it. And it's interesting that census equals 36, right? And we just told you that the quote equals 306, which is 36. They're talking about the census. And it's because of this. 36. A lot of 36 in there. And the lowest rates of response are in this county, Windham. Windham equals 36, just like the census. So a look at the timeline of census history, and the population was 3,929,000. And now it's like 330 million, or I saw 329 million. So look at New York. It's the nation's largest city with a population of 33,131. And that's interesting because, well, New York equals 33. So funny that in the first census, New York City should have 33,000 people. I'm rounding it down, obviously, but. So here's when the first census was August 2nd, 1790, or 8/2. And it's funny because 82 or 82, Vermont equals 82. And in the article, they're talking about Vermont. You know, we told you it was 37. It's also 82 in the reverse ordinal cipher. So this is the first census in August 2nd, 1790. And that was on a day with 151 days left in the year. And of course, 151, the 36th prime, like census. So a great time of year for the census to come out. It was also left 204. It was the 214th day of the year. And that's interesting because Vermont was admitted to the Union on March 4th, 1791. And from the first census to Vermont statehood was 214 days. Interesting. 214. And it was launched on the 214th day of the year. Now, in the story, they mentioned southern Vermont as the focus of the article. Windham County, the worst county in Vermont. Southern Vermont equals 227, and 227 is the 49th prime number. And that's interesting because U.S. Census equals 49. And look at Vermont's population. It ranked 49th in 2019. I guess that was an estimate. So I found a lot of interesting things about the number 117. Novel coronavirus pandemic equals 117. This is part of the reason for the slow response, they say. The first census came out on a day with 117 numerology. And the funny thing, here's the agency history. It started, Congress enacted legislation creating a permanent census office within the Department of Interior on March 6, 1902. And on July 1st, 1902, the U.S. Census Bureau officially opened its doors under the leadership of William Rush Merriam. And I'll get into this guy later. So they created a permanent office on 3/6, or 36. Remember, census equals 36? And it's interesting because it was 117 days after they opened their doors. Right? 117. And the census was founded on a day with 117 numerology. Also, Windham County equals 117, a poor response county. And my brother is involved with the census. He is a recruiting assistant. His last name equals 117. He's a census recruiting assistant, equals 102. And his full name is the reflection of that, 201. And here he is. So he lives on Chapin Street. Look at that for his last name. And this is a recent move he's made. 54, 45, 126, and 45. Interesting. That organization that's pushing to get people to take the census, the Vermont Complete Count Committee, equals 405, like 45, like Longsmith, like where he lives. He was born on a day with 95 numerology. U.S. Census equals 95. So then I saw this little factoid that nearly all adults, or 95%, have heard of the census. Probably higher than that, but they say 95. And U.S. Census equals 95. And 78 say they'll definitely or probably submit a census form. 78%. Census response equals 78. Interesting. My brother's full name equals 93. And census response equals 93. And he's the one who posted about, this is going to be a tough year. He posted the article. He lives in Windham County. It equals 181. 181, the 42nd prime. That's interesting because he was born on a day with 42 numerology. The Vermont Count Committee equals 162, a number that kept popping up in this research. 162, And from this story to his 53rd birthday, it was 162 days. The story back on April 10th, right? And the name of the committee is 162. And then the town gets $4,000. If you write out 4,000, it equals 162 in reverse and in English ordinal, alphabetical order. It's pretty rare. And if you write out $4,000, it equals 81. Why is that interesting? Well, 81 and 81 is 162, and census equals 81, ritual equals 81, right? And the current head of the census is Dr. Stephen Dillingham. They say he's the 25th Census Bureau Director, and he got the post on January 7th, 2019. And he's got more than 25 years of statistical research, senior management, and legal experience in the federal government. 25 years, 25th Census Bureau Director. And then I noticed from his birthday to when he got the appointment, or when he got an appointment to his next birthday, is exactly 18 weeks. Why is that interesting? 18 weeks, because if you write out census, it equals 18. It's exactly 18 weeks, Mr. Willingham, Stephen Willingham, assumed office on January 7th. He's 68 years old right now, from South Carolina. Stephen Dillingham. And the gematria of his name, Mr. Dillingham, kind of look like number of the beast numbers. 174 and 258 and 87 and 75. Let's look at number of the beast. There has been a lot of number of the beast stuff this year. I've noticed that they're coding that, or someone is coding it. Number, oops. I don't know what I did wrong here. The number of the beast. Okay, here we go. The number of the beast. So if you notice, with the S exception, the number of the beast and Stephen Dillingham are fairly similar. Both 174, both 75, both 258 and 87. Almost a complete match. So I thought that was interesting. So back to the decode here. And then I noticed that ritual and census are the same. Both in English ordinal and reverse ordinal, they're both 81. And this number 81 pops up over and over again. The town supposedly gets $4,000 per person who fills it out. That equals 81, the ritual number, just like census. So the reason for this, the response that is slow, is one of the reasons, increased distrust in government. That equals 419. And 419 happens to be the 81st prime number. We're just talking about that number. Census, ritual, 81 and 81 is 162. So let's look again at this. $4,000 for every person that fills it out. So Vermont's 48th among all the states. And if you look at the population of Vermont, I don't know if you can see this, according to 2010 census, it was 12,046. So if you take the total number of residents, which, I'm sure this wouldn't happen, but we'll just say it does, and times it by 4,000, you get 48,184,000, right? And if you just take half of it, say you take 6,000, 6,000 times 4,000 equals 24 million. Reflection of 42, 24 million. So 48,184,000. They're number 48 among responsiveness is how much Brattleboro could make. Reminds me of this number, Freemason 48, also 42. So let's look at the first leader of the Census Bureau. Miriam's final accomplishment was appropriate for a banker and businessman who could work well with both people and numbers. He was director of the 12th National Census and later persuaded Congress to establish a permanent Census Bureau, where he served as its first director. Miriam never returned to Minnesota, but retired instead to Florida, where he died in Port Sewall at age 81. He was 81 when he died, 81, right? Census equals 81. Ritual 81. Increased distrust in government, why things have been slowing down. The 81st prime. 81, that ritual number. So let's look at Mr. Miriam. Born July 26, 1849, died February 18, 1931. He was governor of Minnesota for 4 years. He was born with 33 numerology, 7 plus 26. And from his death to his next birth, would have been his 82nd birthday, was 158 days. And that's a number. July 26th, the day he was born, left 158 days left in the year. Right? And Freemasonry, of course, equals 158. Miriam also equals 49. We were talking about 49 before. And he died on the 49th day of the year. And he was born in 1849, and he died on the 49th day. He was born on the 207th day of the year. And it was 207 days from his last. It's happened basically on the 207th day of his age that he died. 207 or 27. Kind of like died at age 81. Kind of like that ritual number. Ritual equals 27. 81, also 45, which we mentioned in this. So William Rush Miriam equals 96. Kind of like Freemason equals 96. So he was a banker, and he set up the Census Bureau. It's called the United States Census Bureau. That equals 96. He set it up. William Rush Merriam 96, United States Census Bureau 96, Freemason 96. He was born on a day with 100 numerology, and the census was first established on a day with 100 numerology. 100 is 10 times 10. In Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, and mandates an apportionment of representatives among the states must be carried out every 10 years. Therefore, apportionment is the original legal purpose of the decennial census every 10 years. Every 10 years, right? And 10 times 10 is 100, and it was found on a day with 100 numerology. So, here's what it says in the Constitution about it, with the original language. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons, right? The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States and within every subsequent term of 10 years. So every 10 years. So that's the original language. And basically we're talking about enumeration, which equals 162, or 81 plus 81, right? Enumeration. So from his last birthday to the formation of the first Census Bureau was 223 days. 223, the 48th prime, right? And I have another slide here. Oh, so we're coming up on the 229th anniversary of the census, or the 230th anniversary of the original census. We're 36 days away as of me doing this doing this story. 36 days away, or 37 like Vermont, right? Interesting. And June 27th is the 179th day of the year, and the census came out in 1790, or the first one, or 179. So isn't that interesting? And if you write out Article 2, Section 2, you got your iconic 74, like gematria, like, occult, and also 164, which is 82 plus 82, right? The first census came out on 8/2, 82 and 82, just to show you if you don't believe me, is 164. 164, 82 plus 82. So that's all I got. I know it's a lot. And so I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day or evening to watch this video. Please like and subscribe. And thanks so much for your support. I'm going to end that by thanking my protection, thanking the circle of protection that protects me. And have a good day, everybody.